Founders building tech startups might think that you need to start with the technology. Today, we're going to talk to the founder of a startup that actually used, in some cases, handwritten notes when they were starting out. Today, the startup story behind Stunio. And how to evolve can be tricky for startups. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. Today, we're going to focus on those strategic pivots and transformations that often define whether a business can make it or not. Join me in welcoming our experts to the show. Today's Startup Connections segment featuring Adam Green and Jordan Hankwitz of Stunio. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks, Julie, for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. And Adam, I want to start with you because the story behind Stunio is really an interesting one. And I think one that a lot of student startups will relate to. You're not in that student phase now, but let's start at the beginning. Share with us the story of Stunio.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. It's a great question, and it's something I love talking about. It's my passion project. It was something that I needed to survive during my second year of law school at Michigan State University. I started selling my plasma twice a week to make ends meet during law school, to pay for my books, to pay for school, the rising costs of living. And it was something I was doing for about 6 months. I did selling my plasma twice a week until my doctor said, you physically are incapable of doing it anymore. It's making you sick. You can't afford to buy the right foods. Now you're making your body sick. I had shingles when I was 21. Not all good things to have when you're so young and in law school. So I started an alternative route, posting on Facebook groups, asking local homeowners if they needed help with gardening and anything horticulture related. My parents are horticulturists, and I was willing to do anything to get a couple extra bucks to pay for the bills. Ultimately, that transitioned into a small student group as local residents were asking almost too much of me. Like there was too many people. Actually, my first post I put out, I remember there was about 133 responses on the Facebook post from people saying, I would love to hire a college student, not a general contractor, not other companies. They want a college student, somebody trustworthy, reliable, and let's just face it, young, at their home, somebody they can trust. And I fit the demographic. It was great. And I did a lot of the work. And a lot of my friends did the work, and we eventually transitioned from just me doing jobs into a small student group and LLC that we were basically running a small company off of a Trello board, a website where people could input what sort of job they needed, put the description, the price, the time, and students would literally comment on that little post and ask me, hey, I want this job, and we'd have to see, all right, who said it first? Who wanted the job first? And then we'd contact the client, go through the whole payment process manually, and get the jobs done. And something that it was good for us to do manually at first, so we could really learn about the market, learn about our clients before we built technology later on, to where now everything happens very seamlessly. We have matchmaking algorithms that mimic that the likes of Uber and Grubhub that take into account our students' availability, their rating, their preferences for jobs, and all those different factors, and creates a list of the most likely students who want to go do those jobs and notifies them of the opportunities for which they can accept, go to the job, and get payment all in the same day. And I don't even know about it sometimes. I mean, we have a dashboard where jobs happen. Perhaps right now, as we're sitting on this interview, there are jobs that have been posted, booked, and happening all at once. And that's the power of the new technology we've built. But it's taken 2.5 years from me posting on Facebook into this iteration of technology we've built, which has been exciting for us to do. Iteration is everything.
And certainly as I look around my studio, Jordan and Adam, I'm thinking, oh, okay, I need to go post a few jobs on there. I have a few things that could get done. So I can see how this idea like wildfire just spread. You said more than 100 responses to your initial post. I'm curious, a follow-up question. I'm curious when you realized that this idea that you had, that you, as you said, you set out looking for a way for you to make money, for you to make ends meet. When did that idea expand and you started realizing that college students need to make money, and college students, this wider community that you can actually connect two communities together. The students who need to make some money, need to make ends meet, like you were at the time, and a community of people that have projects and want to hire students. When did that evolve from you to this big picture of impact?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question because it was something that sort of happened by natural occurrence. I started asking questions. I asked my friends, uh, were they experiencing this too? Was this something that they'd be willing to be part of? And I asked a few of my friends if they wanted to be part of it at the very onset. And as I was at different local homeowners' houses, I was asking the very similar questions of like, why'd you hire me? Like, why'd you want to have a college student come over? I just posted on Facebook. Like, I didn't have a website. I didn't have any sort of credibility or verification, but the kind of fact alone that I was a student was enough of a verification for them to be like, I want to help him. I want to help him because I understand that maybe they've sold their plasma before when they were in school. Maybe they're Spartans. Maybe they're just supportive of the local young community. Maybe they realize that there's not really a bridge between the local community and this island that is the university in the center of it. And they just wanted to maybe see more young people. And so I started asking questions and started getting the same answers from multiple people. And it got to the point where people were asking so much of me when I was at their homes, like, hey, since you're here, could you also walk my dog? Since you're here, could you set up my Ring doorbell camera? Since you're here, could you help at my business? It started to spiral out of control a little bit where I wasn't doing much of law school. I was doing a lot of odd job work. And so that's when we found some more of my friends. Their friends found friends, and we created a group that ultimately turned into what Stunio is today. And it's just so fun to see because that was the organic creation of a company. Again, it wasn't meant to be. It was just a need at the time and a need that I found on both sides of the equation that was also out there. And then when you look at economic reports and just any sort of articles from across the country, this isn't a Michigan problem. This isn't just an East Lansing problem. It's a nationwide problem. It's something that college students and residents and now businesses are struggling with now more than ever, especially post-COVID. And it's something that we feel very excited about pursuing a solution for.
Adam, you mentioned you started as uni services. So obviously starting with one name, one brand, you've already made a big transition into a new name, a new brand. And I know you've had some changes in the expansion of services, changing of services. Talk us through how some of those key decisions were made throughout the process.
Yeah, absolutely. At first it started off as a residential service for local homeowners for odd jobs and odd tasks. It was very, on a biweekly basis, maybe every other month, you'd go over and help somebody with some of these less recurring jobs. And so this was something that was a passion for me at the beginning of Unit Services because I love helping my neighbors. It's something part of my faith that I really want to do and give back to the community. But it was something for in a business sense, it wasn't the best business sense because our total addressable market or our opportunity for recurring revenue wasn't as strong with just focusing on local residents because they don't have as many recurring needs as now Stunio is focusing on businesses that the businesses really do need on a recurring basis. And so there's a few transitions in there over time. Actually, in fact, when we worked with Michigan State on some of our initial partnership arrangements and proposing to them to work with them to get students, a lot of their main concerns revolved around safety of the students. And of course, as students are going into the community to help their local residents, there's some safety concerns involved. You're going up to people's houses that you're not necessarily familiar with. You've been sent an address within the application that says this is the job and this is the place that you're going to do it at. But of course, there's always a bit of safety concern, even though we did enough vetting on the front end to get the student to that job of the client. So of course, though, when we started focusing mainly on businesses, getting students in business roles on a part-time and gig type basis, the universities were thrilled with that because it's more reliable for the students. There's more verification that goes into helping a business instead of a local resident. And for us, it just made good business sense because there's a lot more recurring opportunity. So we've gone through a few iterations over the past 2.5 years, but I do think it's taken each step to get up to where we are now. So I'm super excited we had that experience all through the years.
And a lot can be involved when you're making those changes, from the types of services you're providing to especially changing your target persona, moving from residential, from individuals to businesses. You've also had a major change in leadership and in bringing in a new leader to the team. Jordan, that's where you come in. You were not involved necessarily from day one. Talk to us about the evolution that you've seen and how bringing you on board also made a change for Stunio.
It's interesting because I was actually in the government sector when I first heard about Stunio. I was sitting on a board of directors meeting as a member of Mayor Shore's cabinet, and the Lansing Center board of directors was talking about a situation where they're having a difficult time finding help for plated dinners and having to turn business away. But there was this student startup coming out of Michigan State University. I'm a Spartan and have 2 degrees from Michigan State University, and it piqued my interest. And I thought, wow, what a really cool thing to be bringing students to help businesses and residences to fill the needs in the labor market. And so I ended up introducing myself via LinkedIn to Adam and just said, hey, you're a Spartan. I'm a Spartan. You're doing cool things. I want to hear about them. Let's get a cup of coffee. We did, and we talked for about 5 months, back and forth, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts about, the business and avenues to pursue. Going back to the original question of my entrance and where that's gone with the business and the new trajectory of the business, I've really tried to help Adam focus on some of the administrative tasks of running a business with my background in the Michigan Senate Business Office, as well as the Director of Economic Development for the City of Lansing. I understand complex organizations and how to navigate them. And so I've been really trying to work with Adam and be a productive member of the team so that we're moving in the right direction, but then also focusing a lot on, as Adam said, the business angles and how we can really serve the community and the ecosystem in the economy with students, and we can be serving students simultaneously. And that's been a real big priority of mine.
Guys, I was just talking with a startup founder last weekend, and he was talking about, his area of expertise is on the technical side, the technology building out platforms, building out apps. And he was sharing with me how with his first startup, he ended up in this position as CEO, and which is not tech heavy necessarily. It takes him out of that engineering and building role, and took him out and made him more of the outward facing relationship building connection role. And in his case, seeking out investment. And so the conversation we were having is one that I think many startups face, where a founder has a great idea for a business, but perhaps is not best suited for the CEO role or best suited for strategy, Jordan, which is the role that you have stepped in to help take on with Stunio. And so, Adam, I'm curious from your perspective, how did you know when the time was right to bring in another leader into your leadership at Stunio in order to make these changes that you wanted to see the company make?
It's a great question because I think, like you pointed out, that's probably the hardest part for a student entrepreneur to sort of take on, go to that next level of a company from a student startup into a full-fledged professional enterprise. That was something that I've heard from many other founders when I was still in school going through the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I knew that was a problem for many people because they'd get graduated, maybe they had some investment dollars, but they didn't have the administrative chops per se to totally take the company to the next level. And then maybe they die out because they're not as structurally sound at the foundation as maybe they hoped they would be. So I found out early on after I graduated last May from Michigan State University College of Law that there was a lot of weight on my shoulders. I'm sort of solely responsible for, running the company's vision and strategic outlook and, kind of coordinating between the product people and the customers and the tech and the insurance and the legal. And it was something that wasn't overwhelming, but it was definitely, it put a new weight on my shoulders that I hadn't felt before. And especially being recently married and having a home, there's a lot of considerations into running a startup, especially after going to law school and having legal jobs lined up. It was something of a risk to take. So I knew that I really did need somebody, wasn't sure who or from what level they would come, to help me drive the strategic vision of the company and to do a lot of the administration that is required for an enterprise company, a student startup, as I talked about, to become that professional enterprise that we all seek to be. Everybody wants to be Mark Zuckerberg. Everybody wants to be Bill Gates. But we have to understand that as founders and as tech founders, there is still a lot that goes on behind the scenes to establish that firm foundation, the legal, the compliance, the insurance, the accounting. It's stuff that I wasn't always so familiar with and, understanding how to do. But I quickly found out that Jordan, when he joined my team, was quickly able to pour into the relationship that way.
Well, and I'm sure Jordan would chime in on this too, that it's not just the student founders and the student startups that face this. It is entrepreneurs of all experience levels that go through this phase of determining what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and really even just not being able to do everything. I often talk with startups and we talk about, the org chart when you're first starting out, and your name might be, over every position in that org chart, but that is not the end goal, to be the one person doing all the things. It sounds like you started out actually, taking those calls and responding and doing gardening and things like that. So all startups, all businesses must evolve to bring in the right talent at the right time. Jordan, I'm curious from you, how did you and Adam decide that strategy would be the right place to put you? Sometimes it's looking at sales. People might look at focusing on an investment. How did you know that strategy was where you wanted to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you think about it, Adam and I had that conversation because, operations is one potential avenue, or like you said, sales, investment. Strategy underpins everything that we do, right? We want to do it in a strategic sense. We have a finite amount of time. We have a finite amount of resources. We have an objective that we want to achieve. How do we deploy our resources and our time in a way that's going to best achieve those objectives? And so strategy is a part of the product. It's a part of the digital creation and what we're building. It's a part of the investment. It's a part of the fundraising. It's a part of the accounting and all of those other things. And so strategy is an area that I've worked in very deeply in the political world and in the government world when I had left politics, but still stayed with the Michigan Senate in a nonpartisan position, is identifying who are we? What do we want to do? How do we want to get there? What do we need to get there? And then setting the milestones so that we can start making progress in a positive way. And so strategy to me is really everything all at once.
Jordan, oftentimes startups will share that when they have a newcomer come in that who is not a part of that original idea, that there can be a tough transition to bring in new leadership. Have you faced any challenges? And if so, or if not, how have you navigated through that?
The challenge has not been navigating through that as much as it has been trying to get as much as I can from Adam and from Adam's lived experience. So like he'd mentioned, starting at a gardening level using Facebook community pages into an LLC that was more like a job board, now to what we have today, which is a matchmaking algorithm that's the engine for bringing our businesses and students together. Me and Adam talking has been so powerful of starting our morning with our daily stand-up and strategy meeting of how did you get to this point for this particular topic, and trying to glean that information. And then we decide what's the point that we want to get to, and then what are the milestones between here and there so that we can get there. And so it hasn't been a challenge. It's actually been a really fun opportunity, but Adam has been very forthcoming with how did he evolve and how did he get here. And then we talk about what the evolution looks like for the next steps.
Adam, I want to ask this from your vantage point. How do you collaborate with Jordan to make sure that as you make those strategic decisions to move the company forward, you stay in alignment with your original mission? Or has that mission changed?
The mission's definitely stayed mostly the same over the past 2.5 years. We want to connect college students with flexible opportunities to make money that also benefits our community. We've changed up our target market a little bit regarding residents now to mainly businesses. So that mission's remained the same. It's just putting the structure and professionalism around that mission that's truly helping me become a better CEO and a better leader of this company. And that's what Jordan's been able to add into this enterprise very quickly since his introduction about 4 to 5 months ago. Collaboration with him has been great. It's been an opportunity for me to glean from somebody who's done it before. He hasn't said it quite yet, but he created the Michigan Senate Business Office, a conglomeration of a lot of these disparate departments at the Michigan Senate, like the police department, the mail. It's a nonpartisan office that he created a startup within a Michigan governmental institution. I mean, it's incredible. So hearing from him how he was able to pull together so many different people and organizations into a singular organization with that same mission is something powerful for me to understand, especially being a young former student entrepreneur trying to make a living, trying to make this business all it can be. And so I think, again, what a lot of tech founders or maybe founders in general struggle with, that I've had to come against myself as well, is just pride and humility, kind of the balance between pride and humility. It's like, how much do I know? How much do I think I know? And how much do I want to sometimes have to just sort of quiet myself or quiet my inner thinkings and really try to listen and try to glean from people with more experience than me. We have tech advisors from across the country that Jordan and I collaborate with on a daily basis. And even he has to listen at some points because there are people with more experience than him and I. So it's great, and it's something that I've been continuously learning in and growing with, because as a founder, we can't just be a total trailblazer all the time and think that we have, the best path forward. We have to listen. We have to be able to collaborate. So I think that was a great word you brought up, collaboration. And that's something I really enjoy doing with Jordan and Evan and Paul and all of our advisors, people who are pouring into me, allowing me space to be a visionary leader, but putting, again, that organizational structure around it. It's helped me thrive.
Advice for other startup founders. Is there anything that you wish you knew when you were first starting out, perhaps before you brought Jordan in, or maybe other changes that you've made to Stunio along the way? Anything you wish you had known when you were first starting?
When I started Uniservices about 2.5 years ago, I wish I knew that you didn't have to build tech right away. Like I wish I had that in mind, because I think a lot of tech founders and startup founders in general, they want to build a really cool technology platform. They want to build the next Facebook, as we talked about, but they don't understand what it takes to get there. Truly, building just even a simple software platform is incredibly expensive. What we were lucky enough to identify early on is that we wanted to start making revenue. We wanted to start. It was, since going back to the inception story, I needed the revenue. I needed the opportunity to make money during school, not as a company, but as Adam Green, so that I didn't have to sell my plasma and I could still pay for those books and go to school. So it wasn't so much about making technology and, becoming this big company. It was a need at that point. So it forced us into making a manual process before we made the technology. I would caution many startup founders from diving headfirst into making technology first, and instead positioning their startup as doing it in all the manual ways you can before you have to make technology, before you then are at a point where you've learned so much about the market, your target consumer, about how your revenue model is made, all these different considerations before you go build technology. We had a website and a Trello board that was intaking job requests from people in the community. Like Jordan said, I was on Facebook most days. In fact, I even received letters from folks who were saying, here's a job opportunity that I want a student to do for me. I mean, we did it any way we could just to get, one, the initial revenue, and two, the experience from all that gave us. Then we could put that experience and the knowledge we had gained into building tech, which even then, now we're on our 4th or 5th iteration, and we're building a new iteration as we speak. So it's something that constantly evolves, but I would always tell founders, start manual and then automate as you go. And that's the best way and most efficient way to start your business and to find the right fit.
Now that's a headline: from handwritten letters to powerful technology utilizing algorithms to match people together. I love that. Jordan, we've spent a lot of time talking about the decisions behind the scenes and the startup story from that perspective. Before we go, I want to make sure that we actually talk about Stunio itself and some of the innovations and some of the exciting things that you guys have ahead. Jordan, from you, I'm curious, looking at market trends, what do you see as some opportunities on the horizon for Stunio?
Yeah, I think some of the opportunities that we're really hearing from the university and college level is not just getting students an opportunity to earn income to help offset their college expenses. It's Experiential education. It's getting them into environments that they may would have otherwise not have been a part of. And so they're looking at, from an internship perspective, the student may have a reservation of do I want to spend my entire summer working for X, company Y, company Z? They can work a little bit for all three of those companies utilizing Stunio and get an understanding of how those companies work and whether or not they feel comfortable there, or whether or not they want to spend more time there. And so that's one of the most exciting opportunities on the horizon. And that's one that we're hearing loud and clear from our university and college partners, because that's what they want, is their students to have experiential opportunities to get education.
Adam, last question for you. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe especially student founders who are looking to make an impact in their community?
Yeah, impact is everything in a startup. And I think you have to start with a problem that you are potentially personally experiencing and try to find that solution for you in that moment. It's something that's going to drive your personal ambition and your personal need to build the product. When I started Uniservices, again, it wasn't to make a company, it wasn't to make $1 billion. It was literally just to put food on my own table in that moment. It was a passion project of mine. It was something I needed. And so I urge other founders to find those things in their life that they see a problem that they're experiencing and try to solve for those problems. Oftentimes we try to go outside of our box or outside of our, realistic scope of view and try to solve other problems, where I think the best problems that we can solve are our own, the things that we're going through. And students have a lot of them. We see it from tech to education to how books are written to, computers, and now with AI. I mean, there's so many things that students can that are facing struggles with right now that I believe they can go out and try to solve and be the leaders of tomorrow. So find those passion projects, find those things that you're passionate about, and that you really need to solve for yourself. And that's going to drive you. And that's going to be the motivating factor behind your that continued ambition when the days get hard and the days get long. 2.5 years of doing this, there have been plenty of low days that I've wanted to quit, and many days that I could have quit, and maybe I should have quit, because again, there are other responsibilities I have in my life. But again, knowing that I personally went through this struggle, and I know that there's students going through these struggles right now, it just further motivates me and just it encapsulates my mind. I just can't get it out of my head. Jordan knows that I don't sleep too much. It's something that it's what motivates me. It's what keeps me up, and it's what drives me to make this company successful, because of, back to what the word you said was, Julie, the impact it's going to have on students and businesses all across the country. We're seeing it in Michigan, hopefully soon in other states, and we're excited to keep growing.
And making sure startup founders know that they do not have to take that journey alone is exactly why we have this segment on the show. Adam Green and Jordan Hankwitz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. It was great chatting with you.
Great to have you guys. Make sure before we go, like and subscribe to Expert Connections and look for more stories like the story behind Stunio in our Startup Connections segment.